One of my long-running big complaints about the MCU in the last couple of years, and I remember expressing concern about this all the way back in my AMC and Collider days, was that as Marvel, which, used to put out like 2 films a year and then 3 films a year, but as we started to see their output picking up more and more and more, I started getting concerned, and I would say this on the show, and people would say I was just being silly, but I started saying, so look, the more stuff you start putting out, you are stretching your quality control. And I remember once, I think it was Schnepp and I were talking, and I said, here's the thing. When you're making 3 movies, you have your best people working on those 3 movies. When you make 4, you're now hiring a whole bunch of people that before you wouldn't have hired when you just had 3. Now you're taking the 4th level people to get, right? And I said, now that's hyperbole, yes, but it does illustrate the point that the more you start to do, your quality control starts to get out of focus, and you now have people working on projects that before you wouldn't have had working on projects, but your A and B list people are all busy with other projects. Now you got to fill these. And ever since phase 4, I have talked a lot on this show about the fact that you can really feel the fact that Kevin Feige is no longer directly in control of the quality control. Like hell, with Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, he barely touched that film at all. Like he specifically said, one of the reasons he went out and got Sam Raimi is because he wanted a filmmaker that he didn't have to supervise. And I think you're feeling in the MCU that lack of supervision. And I think it has been a problem for the MCU. Now, MCU has still put out some gold, absolutely. But the overall quality, which we'll get into a little bit later, I think has decreased. And you know who else has noticed that? Bob Iger has noticed that. In a new article in the Hollywood Reporter, which is a great article, which I highly recommend you go and check them out. The title of the article is How Much is Too Much Marvel and Star Wars? Disney Rethinks Franchise Output. Basically, the article runs down this, that Big Papa Iger has put out the mandate. We're going to cut things down. We're going to start reining back in how the sheer glut of content we've been putting out, particularly when it comes to the MCU. Number one, because it's super expensive. And we're putting a lot of money into things that is not our top product. It's one thing to put in a lot of money for something like an Avengers film that is going to be, you've got your best people on it, it's going to have great financial returns and all that kind of stuff. But we're also putting top money into things that we shouldn't be putting top money into, all for the sake of meeting a content quota that really should not be the case. And this article goes into that in detail. Now, this is a great part of this article. In the Hollywood Reporter, in this one paragraph, they say the following. As a point of comparison, and this really illustrates it great, during its phase 4, Marvel Studios released a breakneck 18 projects across theatrical and streaming, 4 films and 5 TV shows in 2021 alone, 3 films and 3 TV shows in 2022, plus 2 specials. The studio released just 11 projects from 2016 to 2019. Like the amount of output they have just done has hurt their quality control. Now, Kevin Feige seems to really be on board with this because Feige said the following. He said, Marvel Studios head Kevin Feige echoed the new direction. The pace at which we're putting out the Disney Plus shows will change, Feige told Entertainment Weekly in an interview published this week, noting that there will be fewer shows and that they will be more spaced out. Now, consistent with that, we just found out that Echo and there was another one of the other shows, Echo and one more.
There's Agatha's show.
I don't think it was Agatha. I think it was one of the other ones that was supposed to come out in 2023, has now been pushed to 2024. So they're spacing that out a bit. Maybe it was the Agatha one because we're definitely getting still Secret Invasion this year, and there's one other one we're still getting this year.
Was it Loki?
What's that?
Was it Loki?
Yes, Loki. No, Loki is still definitely coming out this year, and I think Secret Invasion is definitely coming out this year, but a couple of the other ones have been pushed out. So you can already see they're putting in motion, spacing these out a little bit, and they're going to start reducing the content. Now, Chris, you said something earlier that I think really echoes with this. You are more of a quality girl than a quantity girl, right? And that, I think, is what is written all over this. It's like, listen, we don't want to go back to having 1 or 2 projects a year, but this whole thing about having 9 projects come out in 1 year is not sustainable And it has been one of the culprits of, I'm going to get into a little bit later why I believe the MCU has now lost its magic. And we'll talk about that when we start talking about Ant-Man. But I think that cannot be completely separated from this one thing. 1 year we put out 9 things. How can you keep the quality control at that pace? You can't. So I love hearing this news. I hope they don't go too far the other way. Like, I don't want to go back to the day where there's only 1 or 2 MCU projects coming out a year, but they've got to start reeling back in. And I love hearing that they are, because the MCU, a lot of people don't want to admit it. The MCU has an issue right now. And I think this is not the only one of the causes. And I'm glad to see that they're doing something to address it. We want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, Mint Mobile. If saving more and spending less is one of your top goals for 2023, why are you still paying insane amounts of money every month for your phone bill? Switching to Mint Mobile is the easiest way to save this year. As the first company to sell premium wireless service online only, Mint Mobile lets you order from home and save a ton with phone plans starting at just $15 a month. You guys know I made the switch over to Mint Mobile a while ago. The process couldn't have been easier, and I can't believe that I am spending less than a third of what I was spending on one of the other major carriers before. By going online only and eliminating the traditional costs of retail, Mint Mobile passes the significant savings on to you. All plans come with unlimited talk, text, and high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and switch easily in minutes with eSIM. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door free, go to mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Campea. Anyway, Chris, you read this article. You're hearing what Iger is saying. They want to reel in costs and stuff like that. What do you make of this?
I mean, I think creatively it's for the best. I hope this means that we do get more quality products out of this, because, I mean, that 18 different bits and bobs coming out is wild. That is a breakneck pace for anyone, even if you're the House of Mouse, who is used to making tons and tons of content. But specifically for Marvel, that's so many things, and things are going to get diluted if you are doing so many different things, right? There's no truth that, like, no one can actually multitask. Like, scientifically, you cannot actually multitask because you can't do things well. And I feel like that's what the MCU has really suffered from this past year, has been trying to do too many things right now. We got to do these streaming things, and they have to connect into our TV shows, and we're also going to do this. And it's just gotten very, very muddled and watered down. I would much rather just have a few films come out, maybe 1 or 2 shows come out, as long as they were really, really great quality things. You know, the only thing that I'm not looking forward to are the cuts that are going to come with this. Obviously, we're going to see a lot of, creative offices shut down. We're probably going to see less writers on staff, less post-production people. Well, hopefully not post-production people. We need so many of them. They're always behind. But I do think it's also going to be a really big layoff situation for a lot of folks who usually work for Marvel. And that's always disappointing.
Rob, we've talked a lot on this show about just this ever increasing more, especially when, and I'm not putting I'm not putting the blame of this on Bob Chapek.
No.
But under the Bob Chapek regime, when he started putting the bankers in charge of how much content gets put out and where it goes, and we just saw in recent years this growing demand for more and more and more. I don't think it's a coincidence that we've also seen an overall quality lowering of the MCU. Do you think this is the right move, or are they kind of scapegoating the volume of production as their excuse, or is this a very real problem?
No, I think this is a very real problem, and I think the real problem is the creators that they have working on these shows. A lot of them, I think, are underexperienced to be doing the kind of work that is being done on Marvel shows. For instance, who directed Captain Marvel? You don't know.
There was 2 of them.
Yeah, right. That's what I mean. So in their efforts to try and hire, I mean, they look at a James Gunn and they like, okay, he made 2-3 million dollar movies in Super and Slither. They picked him. People were like, oh my God, how can he direct a franchise property? But Kevin Feige knew that James Gunn, because of his background, what he'd written before, his experience in the Hollywood industry, he'd been there for 25 years. Same with the Russo brothers. Made a call. The Russo brothers, for whatever reason, Kevin Feige gelled with the Russo brothers, and their experience at Marvel really worked. The Russo brothers haven't been able to work so well outside of Marvel. But the people that, I think that She-Hulk is an example of perhaps the creators that were working on that show might not have been the best for working on that particular show, because that was part of this, all the stuff that we got as a deluge in phase 4. And I think what Kevin Feige really has to do more than anything is go back to really vetting the people that he's planning on working with. Sometimes it works. Alan Taylor, who directed Thor: The Dark World, great on TV, great Game of Thrones director, all that. Didn't quite work so much. He was kind of out of his element.
You can often do the right thing and have it not work out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
And he's tried to do that too. So I think Kevin Feige, it's all about quality and the personnel that you hire being right for what they're doing.
And the more people you have to hire, the harder that's going to be.
100%. And I think that is truly what Kevin Feige can go focus on, and really vet the people that he's working with and make sure he's got the right people for the right shows, and really concentrate on making the best shows and movies he can make. Because that's what we want. I mean, I love the MCU. I haven't loved it as much as I loved it all the way through. I mean, dude, Infinity War and Endgame is the greatest culmination of a franchise maybe ever. And since then, I've liked things, but I haven't felt the love tonight.
And how much of that do you think is maybe like, if you had to throw a random percentage on it, how much of that do you think is attributed to the volume of content they've been trying to crank out?
100%. Because like you said, if you're trying to crank out, Kevin Feige's just he's too thin. He doesn't have enough. You can't possibly supervise this stuff, especially when it comes to development. They do so much development that I bet he hasn't been able to spend nearly as much development time on these projects, because he's actually had to physically produce them or run between edit bays and sets. And I can't even imagine the work ethic that guy must have. It's got to be insane, but he's spread too thin.
You know, so I saw one of our viewers put in a really interesting comment, and I thought about it more. They said, you know, it's in situations like this that you really start to feel the loss of James Gunn, because I think Kevin Feige foresaw this coming. And that's why back in the day, he was positioning James Gunn as his right-hand guy to kind of look after the galactic stuff with Marvel. He was going to focus more on this. James was going to kind of be his right-hand man. And then he lost Gunn. And so, I mean, again, maybe that's a big deal. Maybe it's not.
You know what else? I don't know, because I'm a geek. I love watching the Marvel red carpets. You know, when they have the premieres, they always have the red carpets. They broadcast them online. It's been really interesting to see Kevin Feige and him on the red carpet. He doesn't seem like, even when he talks about this stuff, he doesn't seem as focused as he used to be. Even when he's trying to be charming and evade certain questions, and it's all become so generic now, as if, I don't know. I want to see Kevin Feige. Maybe he needs to city slicker it and go find his smile.
Go find his smile. All right, guys. Question is for you. What do you think about this? Disney is going to be pulling back on the sheer amount of content that gets produced over at Marvel. They're putting it under the guise of wanting to be more financially responsible. But let's be honest, if they were all bangers and they wouldn't worry about it, it'd be making them tons of money. Quality is part of it. Do you think this is the right move? Maybe you don't think the sheer volume of stuff they're creating has anything to do with the quality or anything like that. And maybe that's true. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts.